Skype minimized. I don't need to see that, right?
Yeah, hang on.
I'm going to see
You're
you on the
broadcasting, brother.
like the Three Stooges. Shut up, you numbskulls. We're broadcasting.
I know. We are live. Let's see. Are we actually live? Let's see. Yeah, we are live. Cool. All right. Thanks everyone for bearing with us. I know we're a little bit late. We had a little bit of what do you call it? Technical difficulties behind the scenes. So we lost Jose Rosado.
He has explosive diarrhea, so
he is not on the show. Let's just say he had some stuff come up. So he had some stuff come up, was not able to make it to the show tonight. So unfortunately, you guys are going to be burdened with just myself and Mike Sharky James from the Petapixel Photography Podcast to tackle this topic. I really wanted to have Jose on because I know he has some good insight into this topic, but maybe we'll try to get him on another time. But I see you guys in the chat room. Thank you for showing up in there. Hey, Christopher Barry's in the chat room holding it down. Thank you for doing that. All right.
Where's Stampfley at?
Stampfley, is he in there? I don't see Craig Stampfley in there. I don't know. All right, here we go. Let's do this thing. You ready to do it?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Okay, it's back to me on camera. All right. Okay, and here we go. Stand by. Hey folks, on this episode of This Week in Photography, it's all about depression in photography. This is TWiP. All right, so this is a topic that I'm approaching with a lot of caution and a lot of trepidation because, you know, it is obviously a very serious topic and it affects, as I learned from doing my research and speaking with my guest and other folks, that this is not a isolated sort of issue. And I'm talking about depression and suicide and these kinds of really, really heavy topics. And one of the reasons why I decided to, or why I was kind of approaching this with caution, is that this is TWiP is normally a really positive show. I mean, we talk about gear, we talk about hardware, software, politics, and we have a lot of fun doing it. But it struck me that, I kind of went on this tangent, and it struck me that after Anthony Bourdain committed suicide, and then I think it was a week or two before that was Kate Spade, and then that was sort of the opening for me to what is going on? So I started doing more and more research, and it's not... This is not an issue that is isolated to just one demographic or one group of people or one race or one economic group. Anything. It is widespread, and it's hard to put a pin in. So I decided I wanted to do a show about this and get some people on the show that have some experiences in this area that surprisingly are willing to be transparent and share their pain and some of the things they're doing to kind of safeguard against things and manage this stuff. So, this is an interesting topic, and I wanted to kind of set the stage a little bit with a story about skydiving. So, and this is an interesting story. So the first and last time that I went skydiving, I went with the United States Army Golden Knights, and I remember the day like it was yesterday. So it was a speaking gig, and I was one of the speakers, and part of the promotion was we were going to jump with the Golden Knights and get out there and then start the conference or whatever. So they take you through this training. This is military, right? So they take you through this training and you learn all this stuff and, the safety briefing and, this is how the harness works and this is what happens if this happens, all this stuff. So I learned that. I spent, several hours doing that. And then the last part of it is the walk to the plane. You get in this plane and then you go up to altitude and then, it's a tandem jump, obviously. So you're strapped to another human being, and that human being is the one that's pulling the chute. You don't really have to do anything except ride. But what I learned in that is that my body had and has this visceral need to stay alive. Right. So getting up in that plane and getting up to altitude, I'm all like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. I'll put a link to the video in the blog post for this. But I was thinking, I'll get up there. I'll just jump out. How many millions of people have jumped out of planes before? If I can't do it, then I'm no better than them. So I get up there and it comes time to jump out of the plane. The doors are open. Everything looks like a toy on the ground. And I jump out of I didn't jump. I was forced out of the plane because everything in my body was pushing me towards, no, that if you do that, there's a chance that you might not survive it. I'm not willing to take that risk. I'm staying in the plane. We're going to land, right? Luckily, it was tandem, so the instructor pushed me out of the plane, and I made it, obviously. But that moment, I think about that moment often when I think about people that attempt suicide or commit suicide, and how heavy it must be, the things that they're dealing with. That feeling overrides the self-preservation feeling. And that was a strong feeling. Like, my body physically did not want to jump out of that plane. Had it not been for that instructor, I would have been sitting on that plane saying, hey, you guys make fun of me all day if you want. I'm landing with this plane. But had it not been for him, I would not have gone out of the plane. It was almost a mechanical type reaction to that. So I want to talk about that a little bit on this show. And joining me to talk about that is my guest, my brother from another mother, Mr. Sharky. Sharky James from the Petapixel Photography Podcast. I mean, Sharky, I know you've been on the show before, but never on a show, and I would argue we've never done a show this heavy before. So you've never been on a show where we talked about this topic, and you were kind enough to come on because you're actually experiencing some of this stuff right now as we speak. Feel free to share as little or as much as you feel comfortable with, but tell us what's going on.
We're going to open the kimono today.
Open the kimono, man.
No, but this is not going to be depressing. We're not going to make this depressing. It's not going to be one of those shows. We're still going to have a good time.
Hey, speak for yourself.
We're going to have a great time talking about how depressed we all are.
Right.
Well, you were talking about the self-preservation and jumping out of a plane. The people that have jumped, not out of a plane, obviously, but off a bridge or whatever into water and have survived, said that when they jumped, almost all of them regretted it because they realized it was final. It was going to happen. And then when they survived, they felt blessed. They were like, well, okay, I should be alive. And that was just from the moment they jumped. They're like, that was a bad idea. I should not have done that.
Yeah.
But, I took a poll on my Instagram story, which is Lens Shark, by the way. And surprising, I asked, have you ever had any problems with depression, anxiety, or mental health issues? And so far, 69% of people said yes.
Oh, wow.
And I did that little stupid slider thing.
Yeah.
I hate that slider, but I did it anyhow. And I put what mine was on there. And it looks like, it doesn't give you a number thing, but about how bad people's depression or whatever it was at the time was. And it looks like about 65%. Or so, it's like when you go to the hospital and they got those, from smiley face to like crying, like, what's your pain level?
Right.
So people said about 65. Mine, I'd put at about 80, and you'll find out why. And I don't mind saying, I'm 47. You're considerably older.
Yeah, at least 3 years. Yeah.
At least 3 years. But, we grew up in a generation where you didn't talk about these things. You didn't air your dirty laundry. And you just get to a point where you don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I don't care. And these are things we need to talk about. So I think I should probably backtrack and say that this kind of hit home with the Kate Spade thing because a really good friend of mine, her name's Judy. She's David Spade's mom, the comedian. I know her from back in Arizona when I was a photojournalist. And her daughter-in-law is Kate Spade.
Oh, wow.
So Kate's 13-year-old daughter is her granddaughter, and Judy's son, Andy, who's the older brother to, and there's another one that's even older, I believe, to David Spade. That's her son. So, he was married for 24 years to Kate Spade. So this just goes to show you, especially with Anthony Bourdain too, You can have all the money and success in the world, and it doesn't mean crap.
Yeah.
Because it's just like on your deathbed, you're not like, I wish I'd worked more. I wish I had made more money, blah, blah, blah. You know, that whole thing. It doesn't matter.
And that's one of the things I want to hit on, because I think a lot of this is exacerbated by social media, right? Because we look at social, and, you know, I've got accounts everywhere just like everyone else. I don't post as much as many people do. And when I do post, it's probably about TWiP or photography or something. but you know, I look at people's feeds, and they paint an idyllic portrait of themselves, right? And I think part of the issue with that, and that's fine, you know, I mean, that's the knee-jerk reaction. You don't want to, if you don't have anything nice to say, you don't say anything, right? That's what my mom used to tell me. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And I think as humans, we just want to show people that we're prosperous, we're doing good, we've got people around us who love us, we're active, we go out to great restaurants, and that's what shows up on social media. And I think part of the effect of that, you know, everything has an equal and opposite reaction, right? I think part of the opposite reaction or effect of that is people look at their own lives and they say, "Well, Sharky's got it going on over there. He's got a beautiful wife. He's got amazing kids. He's got a great job. He's, you know, hosting a fantastic popular podcast for an amazing website. He's got all the gear he wants, and he's got a fantastic microphone." You know, so
the Heil PR40.
The Heil PR40. So they see that stuff, but they see the very, very tippy top of the iceberg, right? And they see what you choose, depending on the person, obviously, I'm generalizing, but they see what you choose to reveal to them. And then they paint that, they fill in the blanks, and they paint that idyllic portrait of them. Like, Frederick is, you know, got all this stuff going on. He's, you know, I want Frederick's life. You don't want my life, right? So, you know.
Well, look, you were one of my inspirations for starting a podcast. I almost started one in 2009. You know, yourself, a Baron X. I love his voice. Mm-hmm. You know, Doug K. Like, just, you know, Martin. And you guys are all friends now. It still trips me out, and I hope I never lose that, because then I'd be, you know, in D-bag territory, right?
Yeah.
But you know, so you think like, wow, like Frederick, it must be great. He knows Leo Laporte. Yeah. That does not suck. Yeah. Right? That can't possibly suck.
Hey, I know our 44th president. I'm just saying.
Well, that's right. That's right. Thanks, Obama. I love saying that. So, but you know, you don't want to depress people. You don't want to put, you know, like, you know, my cat died today. Here's a picture of Fluffy in the road. You know, like, that's people. You don't want to depress people. Part of what we do is, like, okay, when I created the Petapixel Photography Podcast, which was first the Lens Shark Photography Podcast,
I remember. Yeah.
I decided, you know, like, I grew up on Howard Stern, and, you know, it's like he just puts it out there. Just be you. Mm-hmm. Like, I would be a poor Frederick, a poor Martin, whatever. So I just did me and just put it out there. Just open the kimono, just let it roll, just be as weird, just be me. Mm-hmm. And it somehow worked. But, you know, part of my goal was to take people out of their lives for, you know, 30 minutes at a time. They enjoy photography, so I want to entertain them, inform them, and that sort of thing. I don't want to depress people.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so there's a balance. Like, obviously everyone has a life, and, you know, it is as great as mine looks. There is some dark crap going on.
Yeah, like, yeah, we talked about
and
that.
And we're going to get into that. And it's okay. You know, like, everyone, look, 70% of people that took that poll, out of like 200-300 people, they're having problems too.
Well, let's look at some real stats here. And you sent me these stats over Facebook Messenger. So the CDC says that of the people who died by suicide between 1999 and 2016, 54% did not have a mental health condition. Also, in the 4 months after Robin Williams took his life, suicide spiked by 10%. Which is scary. And then there are roughly, on average, 45,000 deaths by suicide a year, which is more than car accidents. Which is, you know, looking at these numbers, I'm like, what's going on? You know, and why isn't this talked about more? And I think it's not talked about more because of exactly what you said, Sharky, is that people want to get online and escape. Like, being on Facebook, being on the different networks is escapism, right? You want to, just like me, when I watch TV, I generally don't want to watch hoarders, or negative things like that. I want to watch science fiction. I want to watch utopian versions of where things could be, and then when it's over, I go back to the real world, right? So let's put a fine point on it here. So for this first section, I want to talk about. So we've kind of identified that something is going on, and that there's sort of a false sense of awesomeness that comes out of social media. From your opinion, Sharky, what can, like, people that are literally sitting there watching this right now, which is why this is an important episode. People are sitting there watching this and they're like, yeah, I've felt like, what's the point? Like, what do they do? Like, what do they do? I mean, I know we have the suicide prevention hotline, which is 1-800-273-TALK. And I'll put that in the post for this. But if they're feeling like that, if you're a photographer and you're feeling like, you know what, I'm not taking another photo. I don't feel like going anywhere. I'm not getting on Facebook. I don't even feel like getting out of bed. What am I doing? Taking up oxygen. What would your advice to them be?
It's normal. Everything is going to be okay. It just is. If you kill yourself, that's it. It's done. You're done.
Yeah.
You want to live, right? You want things to get better. It's okay to just take some time to go off the grid and just take care of yourself. Sometimes we have to do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like we'll get into the, my daughter and my wife and myself and all that. But, there's help out there, and not everyone can afford it, too. And we're going to get into that as well. Mm-hmm. It can be expensive sometimes, but there is free help out there. These chat lines you can text. There's a number you can text to. You can text like help or whatever to this certain number. I don't know if you have that available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Otherwise, I could get it. It's like a 5-digit code or whatever. And my daughter's used it before. My wife's used it before. And you chat with somebody, and they make you feel better and just kind of talk you down off the cliff, the proverbial or actual cliff.
And that's what I want to talk about that too, because you're right. All those things are on the list to talk about, but also the idea of therapy, right? So, or getting help, right? Because you're ostensibly seeking therapy or someone to help you understand and work through the feelings that you're dealing with. Look in researching the shows, looking at the demographics of who seeks help using therapy in our population, and the numbers are interesting. And I'll put a link to this in the show notes as well. But the numbers are interesting. The looking at it by racial background, Caucasians are most apt to seek therapy or use therapists, followed by Asians, followed by Hispanics, and then Black people are at the very end of it. And I feel that because I'm like, it's kind of a stigma. Like, I don't need help. I'm not going to tell anybody all my business. Why am I going to tell some stranger all my business? And then they're going to tell me how to live my life, right? So that's the stigma that therapy has. But if you're in that group, if you feel like that, what are your alternatives? I mean, if you're like, therapy doesn't work, I hate it, I don't want to talk to some stranger about my problems, Sharky, what do you do? I mean, do you friends, relatives, you write a diary? What do you do?
Your friend Jack Daniels. No, that's right. I mean, see, I told you it was gonna be fun. We're gonna have we're gonna have a crazy fun time here.
Absolutely, Jack Daniels, honey, right there.
Yeah. No, and I joke about that, but that's what a lot of people turn to. They turn to the numbing sort of stuff. They turn to alcohol. They turn to drugs. Now, myself, I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I want to be in control of my mind as much as I can. I don't want to tune out and veg out and stuff. I got crap to do. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I need to be all hands on deck there. But a lot of people turn to the drugs and the alcohol to cope, and that is not helpful.
Yeah.
You're making things way worse. Like, try to go for the help first. Try to get some help.
Yeah.
Stay away from the drugs and alcohol, because that is not your friend. That's a temporary fix, and you need an actual fix.
Here's a conversation I was having earlier today with someone who shall remain nameless, but we were talking about this issue, in preparation for the show, and I was using physics, because this person has contemplated suicide, right? And I was saying, Well, yeah, if you feel like you want to give up, everything in life is physics based, right? Everything seems to have an equal and opposite reaction. If you do this, that's going to happen. Why not just choose to go in that direction, or think these thoughts instead of those thoughts and go in this direction? And the response was, it's easier said than done. And if you look at that equal and opposite reaction, if you're being sucked in a certain direction, whether it's negativity down this vortex of depression, it takes at least as much positive effort to get you out of that, right? So, and I was like, wow, okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's not just like a switch you can turn off. It's like you're in a hole, and it's going to take physical activity and exertion to get you out of that hole. So, Sharky, let's talk about some of the personal things that are going on with you and that you're dealing with, because you're kind of at a nexus, right? You mentioned your wife is going through some things, and your daughter are going through some things. What's happening, and how are you managing that?
Oh, let's see. With drugs. No.
Yeah.
Well, technically, we're going to get there. But so my wife has bipolar disorder, which a lot of people do. It used to be called like manic depressiveness. And,
okay.
So it's high highs and high lows. And so, it's either you're really manic, like you're really just like hyped up and like you feel like artistic and creative and everything's great. And then you feel like you want to die.
Wow.
And she's felt like that in varying degrees since she was 9 years old, and she's going to be 49 in August. And so, that's like almost 4 decades of wanting to die. I mean, like literally, like just multiple. And she said it's okay to talk about this. Like not anybody knows her here, right?
Right.
But, and my daughter as well. They're cool because you need to talk about these things. That's why we're doing this, because people don't talk about it, and men tend to not talk about it because they want to be strong. Like I'm not. We'll get to me in a second here, but she wants to die. She told me eventually it'll probably happen, and she's done enough research and gone to enough counselors and stuff to know that not everybody, and this is sad. This is probably not a good message to put out there, but not everyone can be fixed. Some people are too far gone. I'm not saying she is, but some people are just too far gone chemical wise that counseling and meds sadly don't work, and they end up killing themselves.
Yeah.
And so I hope that's not her. I married her to like not have a 5-year, little deal here to, grow old and all that stuff, right? And watch the kids have grandkids and that whole deal.
It's like what Jack Nicholson said in, what was that movie, As Good as It Gets? Remember that line he told Helen Hunt?
Yep.
It was like the burning line in that movie. He's leaving the therapist's office, looks back at her and says, "What if this is as good as it gets?" And then walks away, and she's just sitting there with her mouth agape, like, okay, and that's true. And that sort of jibes with what you're saying. Like, what if it's as good as it gets where you are, and how do you deal with that? And how do you know? That's the catch-22. You don't know if that's as good as it gets. Maybe if you hang on one more day, there's something else that's going to be awesome that's happening tomorrow.
Exactly. I mean, like, so, we've done well, we're almost 50. So we haven't blown all our money, so we've done well. So we have access to healthcare. So the meds, the whole deal, and nothing has worked to the point where she's, just like calm, like your average, just happy-go-lucky, normal, and I'm doing air quotes here, person. And so, I live with on a daily basis wondering, is today the day? And that is a mind F. We won't go further than that.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's like, I always say, like, I explain it to when I talk to my kids and others about this. It would be like if you were in high school or junior high or whatever, and the kid, the bully was like, I'm going to beat your butt, and you're not going to know when it's coming. It's coming sometime this school year. And so every day you're like, is today the day?
Yeah.
Is today. And so that's some heavy stuff right there. So,
and that's stuff that you have to deal with right? And how do you deal with it? Like, because it's got to be like a chain, right? I mean, that happens and your wife, and then how does that not leak over into your psyche? And, or are you just that strong that you can deal with it?
I consider myself, or did, until not too long ago, a mentally strong person. I was a photojournalist. I've seen some horrible things. I'm just, I'm one of those people that I'm the strong guy. I'm the, not physically, but I'm the strong person. I'm the one that has his blank together, and I use a lot of humor, right? That helps too. That takes the edge off. Like I said, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, none of that. But things got to the point this last, December and early January where I had to get some help. I had to go see a doctor and get on some meds. So I'm on Zoloft.
But how did you know it was time? How did you know it was time to go get on medication? Because how do you know that? What are the flags?
When you get to, for some people they can't get out of bed, and then so you can't function. That wasn't me. I have no problem. I might be like, I had 8 hours of sleep, and it's like, well, I'll sleep another hour because, why not? I'm having a crap week or whatever, but not like all day in bed. And I'm not like boo hoo hoo and all that, but some people are, and that's fine. It doesn't affect me that way. It manifested itself with me as anxiety. Like I would feel like it's hard to feel like a rush of chemicals, just kind of like a nervous energy, like when you're all amped up, like adrenaline kind of thing. And it was like a constant kind of just that feeling for 3 days straight. I had that. It was just crazy, Wow. I wasn't crazy, but it was just that feeling. It was just you couldn't shake it. You can go hop on a treadmill. I tried, didn't work, to burn off the energy, and it just didn't work. So, I got in with my wife's, psychiatrist and stuff. I got in there, and it took a while to get an appointment. That was a long month. Let me tell you, wow. It takes a long time. And then so I got on Zoloft. Now, what Zoloft does, and there's a number of, it's an, I don't know, SSID. No, not SSID. That's a computer term. It's a whatever inhibitor, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It deadens, it doesn't make you high. There's things that, even though it's Zoloft, it doesn't make you high or any of that kind of thing. It just makes it so it takes off the edge. Right now, I've had a crazy week. I feel the anxiety, but it's just oh, okay, it's there. Big deal. I'm dealing with it. But before it was all right, this is getting a little bit, I'm not the same Sharky James I was last week. Things are getting heavy.
And having never taken that drug, what's the difference between, and I don't know, I'm going to put you on the spot here. What's the difference between taking a pharmaceutical like that and drinking Jack Daniels, aside from the addictive properties of alcohol, obviously, but drinking Jack Daniels or smoking weed, to take the edge off and to reduce the anxiety, or in some people's increase the anxiety. But what's the difference than taking a pill that some lab coats formulated and smoking something?
It affects different parts of your brain. The acronym I can't remember. It's a serotonin something inhibitor. And weed, THC, works on a different kind of thing.
Okay.
So this works on what you should be working on. And so, like I said, it's not addictive. I mean, you would, if you were off it, you'd be like, oh, I need that again. But you're not jonesing for it or anything. Mm-hmm. But with alcohol and drugs of any kind, you're constantly doing it. You're high, then you're not high. You're high, you're not high. This Zoloft and other meds get in your system, and you titrate up to a certain level. And then you level off, and it just kind of makes you again.
Yeah.
Ideally, and and some meds work for some people and some don't. Eventually, they're going to do your DNA profile and get the right one for you. And hopefully, that comes along in time for my wife. Mm-hmm. So she, Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade, XYZ person is just one bad moment, bad thought, bad day away from ending their life if they had just chilled out somehow. Mm-hmm. They would have been okay if they had called a friend or if they had texted somebody. You know what I'm saying? I tell my daughter, and we'll get into my daughter's situation here. I tell her, you're 14 and a half years old. She just graduated, 8th grade. You're going to look back even in 5 years from now and be like, why did I care what this chick or whatever said? That was so stupid. That was literally, junior high nonsense, right?
Yeah.
So you want me to get into what happened with her?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Go for it.
So we moved a couple years ago from Utah to Idaho. And people always give me crap about this because she was she was adopted from Guatemala as a baby with from my wife and her late husband. Her their adopted dad, my wife's first husband, died in a plane crash, a small plane crash coming up on 9 years ago now. So that has been a factor right there, too, for the whole family, right?
Yeah.
Sudden loss of a dad. Like, whoa. Like, she was young. She was like 5 at the time. And so I came into her life when she was 9.5 or so. So we moved from literally, okay, so we went to Chicago. This was not long after I teamed up with Petapixel. That was September of 2015. In early October, we went to Chicago. I showed her, where I grew up, etc. We're on the way, it's the last day. We're driving to the hotel, and she's like, Daddy, she starts crying. She's like, I feel so invisible here. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, honey. And she's like, no, that's great. Like, everyone here's black, brown, and whatever. She's from Guatemala, right? Mm-hmm. And we're back in Lily White, Utah.
Right.
And so we were like, well, let's move, let's get home and talk to mommy about it. And Diane, that's my wife's name, she thought it was a good idea. And so we looked at houses, and literally 3 weeks and 2 days later, we were moved into our new house in Boise, Idaho. We hadn't even sold the old house yet. We just got out. We literally, when I make a decision, right? It's like, I don't want to meander my way 6 months later. Let's just do it. We can do it financially. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And so we moved here, and things were great. And then, there wasn't much racism stuff. And I don't want to blame Trump. I'm not going to do the anti-Trump thing here. We're not going to get political. But, she started getting, as Trump ran for president stuff and the whole wall thing happened and, blah, blah, blah. People would say, go back to Mexico. Well, she's like, I'm from Guatemala. Like, go back there then, and that they was, what kids are. They're 13, 14 years old. And so it got to the point where it was just a lot of teasing. And Idaho, we didn't know this, ranks number 1 in the United States for cyberbullying. So way to do the research, Sharky, right?
Yeah,
So she was getting bullied 24/7 on social media and at school, and kids were constantly wanting to fight her. And so this last December, a day after and I've never told anybody this publicly, so this is a TWiP exclusive. Nice. That's great. Tell us about your pain, Sharky.
Exactly. That's so sad. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to laugh. You got to, right?
Yeah.
So at the appropriate time. That was not it, Frederick. No,
yeah. I don't know this comedic timing stuff.
You just don't. Come on. So a day after she turned 14, she tried to take her life by slitting her wrist. And so we took her to the hospital. They didn't have a bed for her at the, like a treatment facility place. So we took her home, we watched her, and then the next day we took her. So she was in treatment then for 9 days, through the Christmas break at $1,000 or so a day.
Wow.
That, and insurance usually doesn't cover that sort of thing. Most people's insurance.
Oh, wow.
Most people's insurance don't even cover mental health things as much as they should. Yeah. So if you have mental health issues, it's sometimes hard to find insurance or get coverage. So
because clearly it's not a problem, so why should they cover it, right?
Yeah, it's only your brain.
Right.
So yeah. So she tried to take her life, and then a number of weeks later, she tried again. And I showed you this before. How sad is it if you look on the video, how sad is it when you have to go on Amazon and look for a tourniquet and buy tourniquets just so you have. She doesn't know we have these. I don't want her to think, well, Dad's got something that could save me. No, we don't want that in her head. So, but if need be, and so that was a dark purchase right there. That wasn't like my D850.
Yeah,
that was a pleasurable purchase. This one more expensive though, but had to buy a tourniquet. So she tried a second time, and then she tried popping my wife's pills, and then we had her throw them up and stuff. So she made 3 attempts since December. And I'm telling you, I went 42 years of my life without being married or having kids. I was all about my career and such. And I got to tell you, when your kid, and she feels like she's always been my daughter. When your daughter tries to take her life once, twice, 3 times, you have no idea. As strong as you think you might be, you have no idea how messed up what that does to your head.
Yeah.
Like when you get. She'd send me texts, she'd be at school and she'd be like, Dad, today's the day. Like, I'm going to KMS. The kids have a acronym for this. KMS, kill myself.
Wow.
I'm going to kill myself today. I can't handle it, Dad. It's too much. I'm going to do it. That just What does that do to you? That really messes you up. I've had to turn down things like at Gulf Photo Plus Expo in Dubai. They were going to fly me there and back, and I was going to be on stage, doing the shootout and everything. And I had to turn that down. I can't be on the other side of the planet and a whole 24 hours of flying away when my daughter and my wife, need me here.
Oh, you'd be
right?
a wreck. So, yeah, I would be a wreck over there every day. Yeah.
So I have to turn down a lot of things. I get invited to expos and this, that, and the speak and teach and whatever, and I have to turn them down.
Wow.
Which is fine because those things are unimportant. As great as that is, like, a lot of photographers are watching and be like, well, that'd be great to go to Dubai and whatever. And that's great. That can wait.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Until you have a plane ride of double digits between you and something important that you need to deal with. Right. And like you said, knowing that a shoe could drop at any minute. But Sharky, how are you dealing with that now? So you said your daughter attempted suicide 3 times. So what did the therapist say? Like, is this a phase that you guys just have to ride it out? Is there something that can be medicated, or should it be medicated? Is it, will therapy bring her out of this? What's the next step?
So she's in weekly therapy, and then every once in a while she sees a psychiatrist, to adjust the meds. They want to touch base with you like every month or so, every 3 to 4 weeks usually, and see how things are going. And then once you're on, the right meds and things are leveled out for you, then you can go like every couple months or so. Mm-hmm. So she's been good lately. It's summertime. She's out of school. We took her phone away from her for an entire month. We're like, listen, you're going to do without the phone. This social media stuff is just, it's so much pressure for kids these days. If you've got kids, you need to know what they're doing on their phones, mm-hmm. because, we saw some of her accounts, and it's like the bullying that was going on and the stuff they talk about these days is like horrific. Like, it's not just having the internet. Like, it's a constant. They're connected. They're 24/7. The technology that we use business-wise and for fun, they use to harass each other and to tease each other, and just, like, you're dating this person and blah, blah. It's just, that's a lot of pressure. We had it easy, like in the 70s and 80s, we would go to the arcade and whatever, and, back in my day, but these days they're always connected, and it's tough.
Yeah, back in the old days, we would taunt each other by writing notes, right? or calling and hanging up or something like that. Yeah, now you can write full-on dissertations to bully people and get on with that. That is amazing, and thank you for sharing that. That is, it's you make light of it, but I can't imagine going through what you continue to go through on a daily basis. And you put a fine point on it. If your daughter makes the decision to end her life and is serious about it, it's not a cry for help. It is not, maybe it is partly a cry for help, but it is, she's gone through with it. There's blood, right? Like, what do you do? Like, as a parent, I don't know what the heck I would do. Honestly, I have no idea what I would do. So one of the questions I'm going to throw at you is, I know in the mental health world, there's this idea of the 5150 hold, where if a person is a danger, if authorities determine that a person is a danger to themselves or others, they can put them on what's known as a 5150 hold and basically incarcerate them until they feel like they're no longer a danger. Did that ever come up, or does that not apply to minors? I'm not sure how that works.
No, it's and usually that's a 72-hour hold, okay. I believe.
Okay.
So the cops will, because I've talked to I was a photojournalist, right? So I know a lot of cops, and they usually don't do that with children. They want you to go through the health system, sure. and all that. But no, if you're an adult and somebody knows you're going to take your life, or it's a real possibility, they can go remove you from your house and put you 72-hour hold. Make sure you're okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's against your will. That's help against your will, but it might be what you need.
Yeah, sometimes that's what you need. But what about your wife? So what are next steps with your wife? You said she's suffering from bipolar disorder. Is that treated with medication or therapy, or how do you get through that?
She's tried it all. So she's on a ton of meds. Like there's meds for sleeping. There's Adderall. There's, to just be like more awake and everything. And they've tried everything, and nothing is to the point where it's like not an issue anymore. There's good days and there's really, really bad dark days.
Yeah.
Where I think this, it's like, I'm a gun owner, responsible gun owner, not a gun nut. And she doesn't know where those are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of them are hers, and she is not allowed to have them. And I don't care what she says about that. She's like, give me the gun. Nope.
And that brings up a good point that I had on my list. Thank you for the segue. I was talking about the statistics of who's committing suicide, who's suffering from depression, and all that. And I was thinking of the correlation between depression, suicide, and school shootings. Right. So and I legitimately don't know the answer to this, so I'm asking: do you think something like a school shooting is in a way like a suicide? Right, because you're ostensibly, you're just like a suicide where you're taking other people with you, for example, but your life is over at that point. If you make it out of there alive, you're probably gonna be over relatively soon, and the life that you knew that before that morning is over. So it's ostensibly a suicide. What do you think about that? Do you think there's a correlation between depression and mental illness? And I mean, obviously, it's mental illness if you're going in and you're shooting up a school, but depression and school shootings and just sort of gun violence type activities. What do you think about that?
I think that's probably part of it. I mean, there's a term, suicide by cop. A lot of people will go pull a gun on a cop because they don't want to put it to their head. They want to be shot. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's insurance reasons for that. I don't know, because you don't, your family doesn't benefit if you kill yourself, Mm-hmm. So most insurances, I would guess. But there's got to be a component of that. Depression, if you're having mental issues and maybe you're getting, bullied at school and such, you're going to be depressed. You're not going to be happy about that. So, it's just it's no excuse for what's done. But, a lot of these school shooters were bullied.
Yeah. And,
but that happens. But so why didn't people recognize the signs? The signs, they all said afterward, oh, yeah, we totally knew he was going to be, a school shooter someday,
they don't do anything.
Happened.
Yeah, they don't do anything. They're just like, yeah, we knew that was going to happen, but we just decided to kind of hang out. Like, what are the signs? Like, what are not so much for school shootings, but for photographers and creative people that may not even know that they're depressed. Right? You may not even know. You're just like, I just haven't felt good for the last year or so. So how do you recognize the symptoms of depression with like early onset depression? And then what do you do after you've recognized that, something's going on here? Like you, for example, you knew that, hey, you know what? It's time for the Zoloft. Like, how do you know when it's time for the Zoloft?
You just know. It's obvious. Yeah. It's obvious that you don't feel like yourself. And I didn't want it to get to the point where I couldn't function and I couldn't put out episodes. This is how I earn my living, right? Mm-hmm. And so I have to be functional. I got to be there for my wife, my kids, and the audience, and I have to earn a living. So, when it started getting to the point where it was like the anxiety of not just my wife, worrying about her for the last 5 years plus, that right there is enough. And then all of a sudden my daughter trying to kill herself a few times, like that's just, I don't care how strong you are, that will affect you. Yeah. And then when you feel it, you have to get some kind of help. But like I said, I wasn't, couldn't get out of bed, that kind of thing. I was fine. I'm fine now. Everything's obviously you can tell. You listen to my show, you can tell everything's cool. But I just didn't like that. It was just, I didn't like that anxiety feeling. Like, why have it if you don't need it?
You say, listen to your show and we can watch and tell that you're fine. Many times that I do TWiP, I'm not fine. I mean, not that I'm suicidal or depressed or anything, but there's a bunch of other stuff going on in my life that I have to deal with. But I have finely tuned the art of looking like everything's okay in front of the camera and sounding like it's fine. At least for an hour, I can keep it up. Right?
Okay, and that transitions into people in their life pretending like everything's cool when they really should talk to somebody. Like the wrong venue for us is, like, welcome to the Petapixel Photography Podcast. I'm really depressed today, so this is going to be obviously a stellar show.
Unsubscribe.
No, hit unsubscribe now, all of you. Yeah. No, but so like this is the right forum right here. But in your general life, talk to somebody. Like, I think, I don't know the statistics. I don't know if you have the statistics on it that I can talk the statistics on it, but I bet women go get help a lot more than men do because men want to just pretend like everything's cool.
Yeah.
And that's why men get colon cancer and die, or, whatever, just, any kind of problem, because we think we're strong enough. But I think that's changing with the generations.
Yeah.
I think it's getting better. And hopefully with Kate Spade, like I said, that hit home because, I know her mother-in-law, and like, that's personal. I know her, love her, great person, and she's in pain. So, that affects me. And then Anthony Bourdain actually kind of hit me harder because it was like, wow, like I wasn't even a big fan of his or anything, but it's like, stop, like people get help, do something now.
Yeah. Bourdain,
you don't have to do it.
Bourdain was when it was, he was like the guy, like, I want to grow up and be Anthony Bourdain, right? Like, you want to have a show on CNN that everyone loves. You get to go to travel to exciting places and eat strange foods, and, and you're cool. And, it seemed like the facade of Anthony Bourdain was, he's got it going on. This is the dude that most dudes want to be, that are sitting in their cubicle thinking, if I could architect my life, it would be like Anthony Bourdain. Come to find out, there's plywood holding up the facade, and there's a lot more stuff going on behind the scenes than we knew about, which is scary, right? And that's why I wanted to do this show about creatives, because a lot of us, and a lot of people that I know, you included, there's a lot of people that I know that have these demons that are just off camera, right?
You and I are not going to dox anybody today,
right?
We're not. No doxing's going to happen. But you and I could name probably, because I'm pretty open. I tell people just everything, right? Because I don't. What's it matter? This is what we should be talking about. Yeah. I probably know at least 10 to 12 people that you and I both know that are on medication or have got some serious problems. People that the audience knows. So just take comfort in that audience. You're doing better than some of the people you look up to.
Yeah.
It seems like the grass is green on the other side, but it's not always. Look at Robin Williams, for instance. That blew my mind. Like, Robin Williams, like, what? He's worth like hundreds of millions of dollars. You're Robin Williams. Like, how can your life really suck? But like I said, some people are just so far gone that it just nothing works.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Was he on meds? What did he do? I don't know. So.
Yeah, and you go so far down the train or the tracks of putting up the facade. Like Robin Williams is a perfect example, right? A perfect example. I mean, like you just said, it's Robin Williams, right? That's Mork from Mork and Mindy. That's why
I mentioned it, Frederick. It was the perfect example. That's why you had me on.
You're right. Yo, you know stuff. That's why I had you on.
I know stuff.
You know one or two things.
I have all the best words.
But you look at him. Oh, see, there you go again. You're baiting me.
I'm not going to trigger you.
You can't trigger me. But you look at him, and he was like, he was the perfect facade. You see him on talk shows, and he could flick it on, just like me doing the podcast. Not that I'm anywhere near a Robin Williams, but I understand when you sit down in front of a camera, it's like, okay, time to turn that spigot on, and then you're done, you turn it off and go do your normal stuff, right? And who was the normal Robin Williams, I wonder? Like, who was the guy that was like, okay, no one's around now, I can be myself? Who was the myself of Robin Williams? And I think that's what a lot of creatives need to get back to, is like, who is the yourself in you, and who is the the person that is not the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram facade, and how do you deal with that? And then I would even take it a little bit further, is to look around you. Like, we're shining a light on this, right? And we're trying. If I could do anything in this, I wanted to show that this is not an isolated thing. So if you have conversations with friends and family and people that you care about, maybe probe a little deeper and see if they're actually projecting the real them. What do you think about that?
Frederick, just look at the poll I took, right? You could take a poll. We could all take a poll. 70% or so of people have had a problem, whether it's depression or anxiety or whatever. These are important issues, and everyone just kind of like, they don't want to talk about it because you don't want to be seen as the mental person. When you asked me, because you knew what was going on, because you and I are friends, believe it or not. We know each other, right?
Yeah, I've heard of you.
You're my brother from another mother, as you said.
I pass you on the golf course every now and then.
Oh yeah, exactly. Hole in one every time. Every time I shoot it, hole in one.
Yeah.
Don't lie. No, but you asked, would you be willing to talk about this stuff? And I'm like, I really need to think about this. It's like, I don't want to be like Sharky James, the guy on Zoloft whose wife is bipolar and his daughter killed himself.
Right.
News at 11. Like, right. Like,
Yeah.
But this is important. Like people are saying in the chat room and stuff, thank you for bringing this, to the community and stuff like that. I don't know what the statistics are on this either, but creatives seem to be more, let's say, mentally ill. There's a fine line between mental illness and the creativity. There's something about having that creative drive and gene that you're like that far away from losing it.
Right.
I don't know if you know Peter Shankman.
I don't.
He has a podcast called Faster Than Normal. I'm going to be on it. I think in July or August or so. It's about having OCD and ADHD and about how you can tell I'm a spaz. Like I'm thinking 2 or 3 other things as I'm talking to you right now. My drives my wife nuts because she has to think very linear, otherwise it's overwhelming. I'm an extrovert, she's an introvert, and she thinks the OCD and everything is a problem. I'm like, no, that's what fuels me. That's that's my mojo right there. That's my, it's like Samson and his hair.
Yeah.
That's what drives me, But like going old school, like you remember the show Night Court from the 1980s? I
do.
So my cousin created that show.
Oh,
He created it, executive producer, director, and all that, and head writer. Well, this isn't a secret. John Larroquette, famous actor, tons of Emmys. He was in Stripes, I think, a bunch of movies. He famously is an alcoholic. Once you're an alcoholic, you're always an alcoholic. And so, in the past, my parents would go to, go see my cousin, and they'd have these, like birthday parties, whatever, for my cousin, and all the people from Night Court were there and such, and he was just like a raving drunk. Wow. John Larroquette. And so, and I've met other famous people, and they're a mess, actors, unless you give them a script, they're just mostly boring people. Everyone's got problems is the point.
Yeah.
No matter how famous you are. And this past couple weeks with Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain proved it. If Kate Spade was worth like a couple $100 million and Anthony Bourdain, I don't know, 50 million or so, if you've got everything and you still want to die, there's a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's tough. It's hard to get your brain around. And I want to bring the chat room into this, by the way. So, folks, if you are in the chat, I see there's a vibrant chat going on in there. If you have questions or comments about what we're talking about, please post them in the chat, and Sharky and I will address them publicly and chat a little bit about it. Before we take those chat questions, though, Sharky, I want to because we're getting close to the end of the show here. Before we end the show, I want to give you a chance to plug where you're from. You know what? I tend to think that your name,
Chicago.
I tend to think that your name is the Petapixel Photography Podcast. Like that is on your birth certificate somewhere. So tell us where you are from and what you do normally before we jump into listener and chat room questions.
What I do? What do you mean? What do I do normally?
Well, what do you do? What do you do?
The podcast?
Who is Sharky? Well, yeah, tell us about the podcast and tell us where this shark thing came from.
It's funny, no one's ever asked me that.
Uh-huh.
No, but so I was a photojournalist. Going way back. We could go way back.
Don't go that far.
I majored in photojournalism. I ended up leaving that. That was during the Gulf War time. That did a number on me mentally. Not like, oh my, just like, I was like, this is some serious stuff. So I switched to political science, which was pointless. And I bailed out. I started a parenting magazine. Nice. Then the internet took off. So I had an internet design and consulting business because most people didn't have websites. That was great.
Yep.
And then sort of semi-retired, moved up to the White Mountains of Arizona and backed my way back into photojournalism, won a bunch of awards, did my thing, met my wife, fell in love, got married, blah, blah, blah. And I'd been wanting to do a podcast forever. Like I said, you were an inspiration to me. And I was like, if Frederick can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
He makes it look easy.
A lot of people make that mistake, man. I'm telling you.
Well, hey, listen, it could have gone either way. So I started the Lens Shark Photography Podcast, just did my thing. 8 months later, the Petapixel, like I'm an old man, like the Facebook. Mm-hmm. Petapixel was like, hey, how would you like to, team up? Like, your chocolate and my peanut butter and your chocolate, the two great tastes that go together, right? Reese's peanut butter cups or whatever. And let's do it. And so we did. And now it's one of the most listened to photography podcasts ever.
It is awesome.
It's crazy.
And we cite it a lot from time to time on This Week in Photo. So thank you for doing that and adding a voice to the blog that they have going on over there. Well, perfect. Let's take a couple of questions. And thank you, Christopher Berry, for collating these for us. We got one from Nicole Hawkins. Nicole says, let me bring this up into the broadcast. Nicole says, children are placed on a 55-85 hold. It's equivalent to a 51-50 hold. Okay, so now we know that. So, yeah, and I would assume that that's probably 72 hours as well, right? Like
and that's where... who knows? But that's where Van Halen got 5150 from, by the way. Their famous album.
Wait, who is Van Halen?
Van Halen from the 1970s and 80s.
Kidding you.
Grandpa.
I'm just kidding. How did you fall for that bait? How did you?
Well, listen. So I knew what you're doing. Some people in the audience are like, who? Who?
Yeah, Van Halen. Are those shoes? Yeah. I know. All right. Well, cool. Okay, here's the next one. This is from Eric J. PhD. Let me find it. Yeah, let's bring this up on the screen here. There we go. So Eric J. PhD says compartmentalization, for example, looking like things are okay in front of the camera can be healthy, i.e. time off from stressors, and a flow experience absorbed into the moment is also protective. Awesome. Well, good.
I want to know what Eric's PhD is in. I mean, it could be like entomology, and he's giving us like advice.
I think he said it in the chat earlier. I missed it.
What are you, Eric?
Eric, let us know what kind of PhD you are. That's
Shrink
fantastic.
our heads.
So basically, he's saying podcasting is therapeutic. So
I want to ask you a question.
On so long.
I want to ask you a question, Frederick.
Go for it.
Have you ever had depression, anxiety, or any kind of mental issues? Not like oh, I'm kind of stressed out about doing the show today.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes. So I would say that I've never gotten to the point where I felt like I wanted to off myself or, be suicidal. And I don't know, and this is partially why I was asking you the questions. I don't know what depression looks like. But in retrospect, I've had moments where I just want to stay in the bed all day. I'm like, what's the point of getting up? Why do I need to get up and make up my bed and take a shower when I'm just going to get back in it and mess it up again? So why don't I just stay here for a little while, maybe a couple days or a week or whatever. Why not?
I envy you. Like I said, my mom, both my mom and dad both have anxiety and depression issues, mostly my mom. Mm-hmm. And so I've had depression most of my life, but never where it was debilitating, Yep. It's just like, I'll wake up and I'll be like, wow, like what? It's like I've got one of the most popular photography podcasts on earth. And I wake up and this should be a good example here. I wake up and I'm like, wow, this is really like, why am I doing this? This sucks. And then I shake it off and I'm good. Right. But not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
And that was pre-Zoloft.
I think probably part of my ability to deal with a lot of stressors, and there's a lot of stressors in my life going on at any one time, I would attribute a lot of it to the military and being, and just having to deal with that stuff, but also being the youngest of 5 kids. so, you can't really say anything that will really, really hurt my, being the youngest of 5 kids and living in Chicago. So you can't really do a whole lot that's gonna, push me beyond what I haven't already dealt with. So,
you grew up in the South Side.
I did grow up in the South Side. Yeah. Yep. All right, here's another question. This is from Rick. So Rick Killboy says, Sharky James from the Petapixel Photography Podcast, does working on podcast recording, post-processing, I guess, help with anxiety?
No, it adds to it. No. No. So here, my process is I go through Petapixel, the mothership, as I call it. I figure, now I'm pretty good at knowing what stories people want to hear.
Yeah.
And so I go and choose my stories. I write, I procrastinate like crazy, which doesn't help. And it's like all of a sudden midnight, I'm like, oh, I got to write a show. And that takes 6 to 8 hours, and I'm doing other things. I'm checking, the news.
You do a lot. You do a lot.
Yeah, so I'm doing a lot of stuff, right? So, and then it takes the next day I'll record, and so it takes about 3 hours to record, 2.5 to 3 hours to record what is essentially a 30 to 35 minute show, because I still cannot speak. Like, I don't. You would think you'd get better, but no, I've gotten worse. It used to take about an hour and a half.
Really?
So no, I'm just a perfectionist. So like, I want it to be good. I want it to be, and I do the outtakes. I put outtakes at the end of the show, and those are fun. You can see that I'm a mumble mouth. I just can't get it out sometimes.
Yeah.
And then editing it used to take me 12 hours to edit. And then I got this, you can't see it, but this rack of, not lamb. Now I'm hungry. I got this rack of audio equipment behind me that does some post-process or some processing on the fly that does, on the fly what I used to have to do afterward in Adobe Audition. So I've now cut it down to about 3 to 5 hours or so. It doesn't add to anxiety. It doesn't, it's work, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a great gig. Yeah. I make I make a good living, a really good living, doing a show that people enjoy because I'm weird and just I'm me. Yeah. What you see here is what this is me.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, it's interesting you say that too, because that is, and thank you, Rick Killboy, for your comment there. People often talk about podcasting to me, in terms of, I want to start my own podcast, but there's so many photography podcasts out there right now. Does the world really need another one? And my response to that 9 times out of 10 is there's only one you. And there's only one, you have a unique perspective based on your life experiences, what's going on in your life, in your world, what you care about photographically, what you don't care about, how you articulate, or in the case of Sharky James, don't articulate and fix it in post. But, exactly. You're different, right? So if you want to start a show, do it, The hardest thing about podcasting is sustaining a podcast.
Exactly. You have to be consistent. I'm a perfect example. So I launched the Lens Shark Photography Podcast, and you can still find that online, and it's horrible. Go listen to how did anyone even continue? How did Petapixel go, this is what we want. We want to team up with this guy. But, you guys have already been, when did you start podcasting? Photography podcasting it's been like over a decade now, right?
Right. Yeah. No, it's been about 9 years, something like that.
Martin Bailey's been doing it like 11, 12 years. Chris Marquardt as well, tips from the top floor. So
Chris Marquardt had Jesus on as a guest, I think.
Exactly. So, and Jesus, of course, shoots Hasselblad, as we all know.
Of course. What else?
Right. What else, And so when I started I was going to start in 2009, and I didn't, but I started in 2014. I could have been like, well, people have been doing this for like a decade now. Like, what do I bring to the table? I knew that I could do me, and it was either going to fly or it wasn't. I was going to have to go get a job as a I turned down a job as a photojournalist in Utah, thanks to Paul Giroux, old friend of mine, who's a Sony artisan. I told him my idea one night, and he's like, just do it. Yeah. And then 3-4 months later, when it wasn't out yet, he's like, I can't say exactly what he's going to say, but just launch the damn thing,
Yeah.
And I did. And then look at it. So if you have an idea just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Do whatever makes you happy. And the chances of making money in podcasting are like slim to none.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow you and I have been able to do it, and a handful of other people. And who knows? You might be better than us.
Yeah.
Go for it.
No, absolutely. I want to just do a correction here. So let's see. Chris has put in the notes that Eric has a PhD in clinical psychology. So he knows what he's talking about. Eric, you should be on the show with us.
So he can't tell us about praying manti and ants.
I'm sure he could.
Eric is a smart guy. He's got a PhD. So
yeah.
No, thank you, Eric. That helps. So listen, if just, people ask me, some friends that, you and I both know, like everyone was supportive. They weren't like, dude, don't do that. No, definitely do it. And because they got problems themselves too.
Yeah.
And they're willing to talk about it. If just one person's life is changed or saved from this, like, that blows my mind. I get messages all the time, like, you inspire me to continue with photography and blah, blah, blah. And that's great. What's better? Someone like wanting to stay alive for their family and do better. So just know, like, if you're listening to this and you're having problems, I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a wife and kid that want to kill themselves.
Yeah.
Right? So, and if I can do it, You can too.
Yeah, absolutely. Words to literally live by, right there.
Yeah.
Words to live by. Thank you for doing that. Yeah, and I echo everything Sharky said there. This has been, it's been a hard episode to do in many ways. I toiled over, should we even do it? Should we keep it light? But part of my reasoning, a little inside baseball for doing the show is we're about to launch another show called The Creative. And The Creative will be tackling these kinds of topics. Not so much, as heavy as depression and suicide and mental illness and that sort of thing, but less lighthearted than, the latest camera. And it will expand out beyond just the genre of photography and into all creative areas, including science and music and whatever, right? Because it turns out there are more creative people than just photographers. I found that out earlier, Sharky. Did you know that?
Painting, I mean, anyone can do that.
Anybody can do that. Come on.
And drawing, I mean, come on.
No. Easy stuff. Yeah, so we'll be talking to those people, but aside from just doing more interviews from different genres, I want to dive deeper into the topics that are important, that are ill-served, like this one. So I hope we did this justice. I don't feel like we did. I feel like we just scratched the surface of it. And we
might have to revisit it.
There's a lot more to talk about. Yeah, there's definitely a lot more to talk about. Let me read this blurb. This is from the National Suicide Prevention Hotline on their site. So their number is 1-800-273-TALK or 1-800-273-8255. They say they are a United States-based suicide prevention network that provides 24/7 toll-free hotline available to anyone in suicidal crisis or emotional distress. The Lifeline supports people who call for themselves or someone they care about. And you can also get to them at suicidepreventionlifeline.org. And I'll link to all this in the blog post for this episode and also in the description in the YouTube post. So,
and I would also add to that too, that if you want to, and my daughters use this and my wife, if you want to text, I can talk. See, this is what I'm talking about right here.
Yeah, you'll get it.
If you want to text, I'll eventually get it. We'll edit this. No, we won't.
No, we won't.
So if you, no, we won't. Frederick didn't sign up for that. It's cut, done.
That's right.
It's going live as soon as you're done. It's available.
This podcast goes live tonight, bro. Sorry.
Exactly. It's live in seconds. Come on. No. If you want to, not everyone wants to talk to buddy. Like when someone calls me, I don't want to talk to them unless it's you, Frederick.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, you call me all the darn time.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, never. So if you want to text somebody, you can text help or any word actually to 741-741. So everyone put that in your phone right now, 741-741, text help or whatever to that. You'll get a response and you can text with somebody. You don't have to talk to somebody on the phone and they don't have to hear you cry, sobbing in your blanket or whatever.
Yeah.
So whatever you do, it's okay. It's all, when it comes down to it, it's all good. Then, so you can also go to crisistextline.org. And this is like a well-known organization. This is a well-known number, and text if you need help.
Nice. I'm writing notes right now. Perfect. I'll put all that in the show notes for this. One thing that's missing from this is international help, because we're based in the United States. A large percentage of the This Week in Photo listening audience are not based in the U.S. So if you, I'm going to send out a request to the audience that live in different parts of the world. If there's a suicide resource in your part of the world, please put it in the comments for this blog post or in the comments on the YouTube video, so folks can find that. All right. That's it for this show. Thank you for everyone who came into the chat room and
no picks. We're not going to do picks.
You want to do a pick?
My pick is Zoloft. All right, done.
Can you get that on Amazon? I don't think that's available on Amazon.
No, it's not a controlled substance, but you do need a prescription.
There you go.
Not a subscription.
All right, I'll let you do your pick. What is your pick of the week?
My pick is from Tether Tools, the Jerk Stopper. It won't stop your buddy that's an actual jerk. It's the connect between your. I laugh at my own jokes. That's right. We don't edit that out. It connects between your camera and the cord. So like with the MagSafe connector on Apple laptops. So if somebody trips over it, it doesn't go take your laptop flying with it. That's the thinking behind the Jerk Stopper from Tether Tools. So tethertools.com. They're shameless plug. They're one of my sponsors. Can I give the code or no?
You can give the code. Go ahead. Give the code.
If you want 10% off, put in Petapixel 10, PETAPIXEL 10, the number, not the word. That won't work. I tried. And you'll get 10% off. They make all kinds of great stuff, not just those orange cords, but all kinds of cables and grips and arms. And it's just, if you want to geek out on stuff, go check that out.
Very cool. Perfect. All right.
Done.
So I'm going to give a pick too. I may have given this pick before. I'm going to give it again now. So if you're watching the live stream or just watching the video later, you've noticed that I'm switching cameras. So there's a camera. So for example, here's a camera on me. Hello. Here's a camera on Sharky. Wave. And here's a camera on both of us. Hey, wave. So you may be wondering how I'm doing this. It's probably like a rack of stuff around me or an assistance and all that. It's actually a really cheap piece of software called Ecamm Live, ECAMM Live, and Skype. So we're both dialed into a Skype call, and Skype talks to Ecamm and allows me to do this switching thing that I have going on here. So if you decide that you want to get into podcasting or streaming on YouTube or Facebook Live, I would recommend this piece of software because it will plug into those services and let you go live with the click of a button without doing all that crazy stuff on the services. And then secondly, this isn't live yet. This will go live by Friday, but there's a brand new course in the TWiP School called The Podcast Professional that goes through everything that I do to build the This Week in Photo podcast and what I've done over the years to build this podcast. It's all in there. It's like 2 gigabytes or more of stuff. So go check that out. That'll be at school.thisweekinphoto.com come this Friday. And let me know what you think. All right, Sharky, where can people go to connect with you, find out more about you, and otherwise harass you online? Let's take that back. We don't want to harass Sharky online. No harassing.
We've got the best trolls over at Petapixel. When you got 6 million monthly unique readers, all it takes is a handful of jerks that you want to stop with the Tether Tools Jerk Stopper. That's right. There you go. Plug number 2. They're going to be so happy.
10%
yeah,
off.
Exactly. Exactly. Cha-ching. So if you want to, if you want to listen to my show, Petapixel Photography Podcast, PETAPIXEL.com/podcast. I also do a show with Brian Matiash, who you know.
I know Brian.
Brian Matiash, married to Nicole Z.
I was going to say his wife is cooler.
Don't tell. You've triggered him now.
Sorry.
You're going to get the wrath of Brian Matiash. You're going to get an email.
Sorry.
But we do a show. We're on a little hiatus right now because I already told you my crazy crap that's been going on, right? Plus, I've had the flu, and Brian's moving back to the Pacific Northwest, back to from Nebraska to Portland, Oregon. So we've been really busy, but we're going to have a new show out soon. That's the No Name Photo Show, nonamephoto.show.com.
Cool.
Already, couple months in, it was doing numbers that shows been around a long time we're doing. So it's popular.
Yeah. Good.
Go check it out.
Good,
we're
good,
awesome.
Good.
I'm ashamed. What you called me? I'm a master at the humble brag.
The humble brag. No, see, let's put a circle around that. So you brought it up. You brought up the humble brag. So Sharky is a master at the humble brag. And let me tell you what the humble brag is. The humble brag is, wow, I can't believe that Petapixel has 60 million viewers or listeners. I'm so blessed to have 60 million. or the humble brag, as you may hear it in Silicon Valley a lot. Like, oh man, geez, I'm so excited to be going to pick up my Tesla next week, but I don't know if I can take off work at Apple because I have this contracting gig with Google that I have to do. That is the humble brag. This guy right here is the master of the humble brag, Sharky James. So, but it's good.
That's gonna if I die, that's gonna be on my tombstone right there. The master of the humble brag. No, listen. So I don't want to make this show longer than it is, but I'm going to. On headstones, you see your beginning and end date, right? Mm-hmm. And there's that little dash right there. That dash is where your life happens. So make the most of that dash, right?
I really like that. I
stole it from somebody, but
make the most
of
the dash. Yeah.
Make the most of that dash. That's where your life happens. So try to give it meaning. If you're feeling down in the dumps, go help somebody else. There are a list of things you can do you'll feel, go volunteer at a soup kitchen. Go find somebody who's worse off than you, right, and more miserable than you are, and go make their day and watch what it does to you. It's amazing.
Love it. You need to do another show and just do like a Tony Robbins motivational Oprah Winfrey meets Canon type show. That's what you need to do.
I don't sleep as it is.
Well, who needs sleep? Who needs sleep?
What do I need? Another show?
All right, well, let's end this here. Thank you, folks, for tuning in to the chat room. Thank you, Christopher Berry, for holding it down in there, and thank you, Sharky James, for coming on the show and sharing. This has been some intimate stuff, so thank you for opening the kimono and sharing yourself with us. I appreciate it. You made this a fantastic show. This show almost did not happen, but I'm glad it did. So yeah, we've got this in the can, and always remember, This Week in Photo viewers and listeners. What am I going to say?
It's time to take that lens cap off.
This is TWiP, buddy.